All right, we're going to call our meeting to order. It's May 14, 2019, and this is a meeting of the Shrewsbury Conservation Commission. Our first item is to review and approve minutes, and we have quite a few sets tonight.
Mr. Chairman, we have 4 sets of minutes, and I would first move that we approve the minutes of June 19th.
Do we have a sec- Any comments? All in favor?
Aye. And I further move that we approve the minutes of July 17th.
Second.
Any comments? There
No.
being none. Jason, you were absent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that we approve the minutes of August 21.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And I was absent that meeting.
Okay. And I move that we approve the minutes of September 18th.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, there being none. All in favor?
Aye.
And Jason was absent. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that takes care of 4 sets of minutes. Second item, sign the bills.
So there are none.
No bills.
There are no bills tonight.
Wait a minute, what is this?
I gave you the, that was the IDA.
Oh,
Moving on to item 3, meetings and hearings. We have a continued public meeting regarding the request for determination of applicability filed by Durga Bondangi for the removal of trees at 196 Oak Street.
I'm not here, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
As you remember, the commission asked me to go out and take a look at the tree, just to clarify what you were removing. Basically, he had one tree that was leaning towards the house, and that was the split maple. So he's agreed he's going to cut that off and leave about 6 or 7 foot of the stump sticking out. And the rest was really just brush removal. It really wasn't, obviously, to clear it right here, but I see no issue with it, so I recommend a negative.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we issue a negative determination with regard to this petition.
do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have another continued public hearing, but it's been requested to continue until June 18, 2019, and that is regarding the public hearing regarding the notice of intent filed by the town of Shrewsbury for the construction of a roadway, retaining walls, stormwater management components, and utilities at 384 to 386 South Street. Again, that will be continued until our next meeting, June 18. The third hearing is also a continued public hearing. It's regarding the notice of intent filed by McGovern Development Corporation.
It should be,
No.
no. It should be item, 8222 should be,
Excuse me?
it's okay. 280 South Minsig should be a regular hearing.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
280.
That's it.
285, 1825 is just a regular, that was continued from last time.
35 and 30,
You missed one, it's the one above it. 280 South Minsig.
yes, it says continued.
Yeah.
It's a continued public hearing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry,
the
you're
government.
going to continue.
He was right.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's what it is. Yeah, this is, we're on the same page now.
Sorry,
We're back.
We're
paying
back.
attention to the other corner.
All right. Okay, our third hearing also is a continued public hearing regarding the notice of intent filed by McGovern Development Corporation for the removal of an existing house and shed, construction of a new residential duplex home and driveway with associated grading and utilities at 280 South Quinsigamon Avenue. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Eric Bizet with Allen Engineering, here with Mike McGovern. We were here last time, and the commission had a few concerns that they wanted us to take a look at, so if I could, I'd like to go through those on the plan. Just to start off, though, we did get a file number from DEP. I saw it wasn't listed on your agenda, but I can give you a copy.
It's the 1825, 285-1825.
Yeah, I updated it today, 'cause I went on the 4 o'clock.
Okay.
We updated it right at the end.
All right. So at the last meeting, you had asked us to take a look at providing a 30-foot setback from the wetlands with our building, and we did. We moved the building, we did the best we could. We've got it tucked into the opposite corner of the lot as far as we could. We're right at the 1 foot from the setback line on the front and the side. We were able to obtain a 21-foot setback on the edge of the wetland. So we were able to gain a couple of feet there. Just wanted to point out the existing shed that's there now that we're gonna tear down is only 10 feet from the wetlands. And the area of this shed is more than the area of the deck and that portion of the building within the 30-foot setback. But we couldn't maintain the 30-foot for the entire building. We did the best we could though. And to try and mitigate this, we provided a split rail fence. And this is shown on the landscape stand. We provided a split rail fence right along the edge of the erosion control barrier, which is our limited disturbance. So that was one of the things that came up at the last meeting. Another comment that came up was the flood line. We had shown it not as a specific elevation, but rather just a digitized line from the flood maps. So with the information that we got from Andy, we used the NAVD 88 datum. We revised our topography, and we've got everything on that same data now, and we're using the elevation of 359 as our 100-year flood contour. So it did change our line slightly, but it didn't bring it any closer. In fact, it actually got a little further away from our building. But at least now we have a more accurate flood line on the site. It actually follows an elevation, which is something the flood line should do. So another comment that came up last time was we're going to need to file an application with the DPW for a stormwater management permit, and they require that we provide a stormwater mitigation system for recharge of runoff, for treating the runoff from pavement, and mitigating for the peak rates of runoff on the site. So we've done this by providing an infiltration system, which is actually in two different areas. They're made up of the PVC chambers. On this one we use the Cultec chambers. And what we're doing is routing the runoff from the pavement into an inlet and then through one of the Vortex water quality manholes. There's a couple of different companies that make these, but we use the Vortex Century by Contact. And then that water quality manhole discharges into the infiltration system that we have here on the side of the building. We have a smaller infiltration just for roof runoff on this side, so what we're expecting is we'll split the roof with roof drains. Half will go into one infiltration system, half will go into the other, and then all of the pavement will go into this one. We also did some test pits out there just to confirm where the depth of groundwater was, and also the soil conditions on the site. And we have filed this with the DPW. They'll be reviewing it for the stormwater permit application. Another comment that came up last time was cutting trees, and were there any trees that we were planning to cut for the house. And we did say that we were going to cut down this maple. There were 3 others that were now showing on the plan that we didn't initially say we were going to cut. There are 2 12-inch trees near the house, one at each of the back corners. And then there's a 30-inch pine. We weren't going to cut that initially, but we took another look at it. And it's a big, tall pine tree, and we think this might be somewhat of a safety issue, being that close to the house. It's one of those ones that goes up and it forks, and due to its height and how close it is to the house, we think it'd be better if we took that one down. And then what we'd like to do is replace the 4 trees that we're removing with 4 new trees, 3 red maples located here, here, and here, and then another white pine, smaller white pine in the back of the lot, not too far from where the large one is now. changes that we made to the plan. We're still continued with the planning board there. We're the last to approve the plans after conservation finishes up with their review, so we haven't been back to them yet. That's where we are with things now.
All right. Jason?
Just 'cause, you know, I forget from the last time, how far is the existing structure from the wetlands?
The shed.
Yeah, not the shed, the house.
Here's the old one. Might want to see the old one.
Just don't
Yeah,
recall.
he's looking at this
Yeah.
one up in here.
Yeah.
It's on this plan. right
Yeah.
The existing house is about 45 feet away, but it's also within the front setback.
Yes.
So it's, you know, we couldn't maintain that setback because we have to conform to the new building setback.
Right. That's it, you're 21 feet. And second question, was there any thought, I mean, I appreciate the split rail fence behind the structure. Is there any thought maybe of extending it all the way around?
It does go, when you say all the way around?
All the way around,
Oh,
yeah.
this way?
Yes,
I'm wondering about extending the fence around.
really around,
all the way
you know, around to the other side, delineate it, kind of have something, a barrier there.
The only thing, because the invasive species that we have to continue to mow to not to allow to go to seed, that was another question. So I did a little asking about invasive species to make sure that if we are allowed to eradicate it. I'm on Sutton Conservation, so I had the opportunity to be able to call and find out exactly what the recommended way to, and what they said was keeping it mowed, never allowing it to go to seed takes 2 to 3 years, but that's how the safest way to eradicate invasive species is. Just a rail fence would probably hamper it, but maybe on the house side anyways. The other side where I don't think anybody will walk off the street, you know, like, so maybe we could meet halfway and you know, do the side where the house is, because there's not much invasive species there. It's really on the roadside where it's, like, it's in rough shape. I like to think of the project as a fixing. You got a non-conforming house that's very close to the street, and like Eric said, we honestly are mindful for that 30 feet, and I have a lot of respect for it, and that's why we're trying to offer good mitigation, so if some extra fence helps, I mean, that's anything that we can help to protect the interest of the public and you know, in that wetland and that resource area, so I think if we could agree on that, I don't have an issue with that at all.
Just a thought. I'm all set.
Bob?
Continue on that thought about the split rail fence. I noticed that it's like midway between the structure and the wetland flag. It's like 10 feet offset from the, was that your intention, to offset it a full 10 feet from the wetland flag?
Yeah, that's where we were, I mean, it wasn't a 10-foot offset, it was mostly just keeping it on that side of the erosion controlled area.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's a minimum of 10 feet.
And you're saying there's no invasive species on the house side
I
of
think
that?
there's some, but not at the level there is on that other side, it's very thick. And I think some of the reason of bringing the rail fence in off the wetland line was to just try to mitigate, you know, try to give back some for that
Yeah.
30-foot disturbance. So, not only to the edge, but you know, respect that buffer zone. I think we could mitigate with where the fence is, and if we had to weed whack some of it to keep it down,
Well, that's what, yeah.
it's just,
As long as you keep up with it, the weed whacking should be able to do it.
the gentleman that we're developing this for lives next door, and he's a very fussy guy. I assure you that he's anxious to be able to maintain that, not as that invasive species
So you're suggesting that you would extend the split rail fence to that upper boundary of the wetland?
Yeah, to really respect that edge and give a good definition for the future,
Is that
absolutely.
wetland flag numbered? The one up at the,
This way?
oh yes, it's 15, isn't it? A15?
15 is the one up at the top.
Yeah. Now, I guess I just have to ask, I'm still a little sensitive to the 30-foot setback. And, you know, I guess the only next solution would, if you had to, if there were a compulsory distance, you'd have to go away from the duplex, I would presume, right?
Some of the value to the project to be able to go to this extent of the build is the duplex value, I'll be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I don't know without the value of the duplex if it would be a remodeling job, which keeps the house much more you know, it's just, some of the value to this big of a project is the duplex.
Yeah.
We tried really hard to not be large, it's a smaller footprint for a duplex, it's more so one of the regulations for the planning department is that it had to be in character with the street, and the one next door is very large. I think it's 10 feet from the wetland line, and it's probably twice the size of our building, so we honestly did try, we moved the decks over, if you looked at the design,
Yep.
it's not, it's a very modest in character to the street. A lot of this project's concept was to clean it up so that the owner would look at something a little bit more eye-pleasing.
Yeah.
And thus, like I said, having the respect for the 30 feet, trying to give mitigation in other areas to,
Okay, that's my question.
Ken?
Yeah, I still have a lot of concerns about not hitting the 30-foot setback. I see this as an opportunity to, you know, site a single-family house on this lot, and instead of a duplex, whereas you could maintain that 30-foot setback. So, I think there's other options other than a larger house. Then he stated that he could remodel the existing structure or put a single-family home there, and then we would 30-foot setback.
That's it, Ken? Candy?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, another option would be to go to the ZBA for relief
Yeah.
on that setback, because obviously existing house is non-conforming, so you've
It's
got
existing non-conforming, right?
So you could go for a special permit and
Yeah.
push it forward, further forward, so that is another
Pulling it
option.
to the street closer.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Or even to the sideline,
To the
which is,
sideline,
because
yeah.
the other properties,
I mean, yeah,
Town
typically as long
owned.
as you're not, you're not increasing the non-conformity, most ZBA will grant you some relief.
Yeah.
So that would be another option too.
You see what we're saying on going to the ZBA to see if you can get some relief?
Yeah,
I mean, you have a side setback of, how many feet was that?
It's 30 feet, I think, is a setback.
Yeah, I mean, if you pulled it toward that lot line, you might be able to gain some as well as go toward the front of the house. Keep a duplex.
through the chair.
Yep.
I don't believe that we can get any so to be granted the special permit for the duplex, it can't have any variances, it has to meet zoning. So for us to go to zoning
With
wouldn't allow.
the fact that it's a duplex.
Correct. I believe, I'm not,
Yeah.
but I'm fairly confident that the zoning laws in town wouldn't allow a variance on a duplex.
I don't know how,
We looked at it, because I spent a lot of time on this, and we've looked at it every way from Sunday, you know, of what was best to do with the property to clean it up, and
Even if the existing home is a non-conforming to the zoning.
we could tear it down and probably do a single-family home,
Yeah.
but you wouldn't be able to get a special permit for a duplex, the way the zoning laws are written. And like I said, some of the value to clean up the project to spend is the value of the duplex.
Yeah, I know. Well, you know, hearing from the other members, I have similar concerns, and I think you know, it's worthy to go and explore with ZB, at least to pose the question and get a definitive answer. Whether we can. If we can get the variance, then all the problems go away. If we can't, again, it's a matter of whether a duplex should be put here or whether a single family should be put there. And if it were to be a duplex, my comment would be that not only the split rail fence, but typically we ask for a vegetative barrier too. The fence only has a limited lifespan. And we back it up with some vegetation. And I can even see the vegetation on the opposite side, the side away of the wetland from the helm, and put a vegetative barrier there at the top of the slope to, just to prevent the future encroachment. Because our big problem is policing these areas, and time we really can't. So I'm going to open it up to the public for any questions or comments, and then we'll decide where to go. Does anyone in the public have any questions or comments on this hearing? All right, I don't see any, so would you be willing to go to the ZBA and pose the question? And next meeting, we
I-
can,
Yeah, I guess we don't have a book with the zoning. It was pretty clear, but sure,
Yeah, well,
if that's what your wishes, I respect it.
let's try it. And also, hearing what you heard tonight about protecting that wetland, if you do settle on that 21-foot distance, providing the vegetative barrier, extending the fence, like Bob said, up to wetland flag, Bob, what was that?
It was 15,
15.
15.
And revise the plan in that case if we strike out with ZBA.
Yes.
All right, and then we'll bring it up for a vote next meeting, okay?
All right, thank you.
All right.
Maybe you
Great.
can check with don't,
I can check with Bernie, I'm assuming I'm not, doing all of
Yeah.
it. By its very definition, a special permit.
Yeah.
Usually has some.
All right, so we'll continue this hearing until our next meeting, which is June 18th. All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
oops, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's another continued one here, I'm just making some notes.
Melvin Ave.
Yep, the next hearing
Then I was continued.
It is open, assuming.
is also a continued public hearing. The applicant
Oh, you're right.
has requested a continuation until June 18th,
Yeah, all right.
2019.
I'm sorry.
And that hearing was for a notice of intent filed by Richard Bedzegian for the construction of a single-family home and associated improvements at 35 and 37 Melvin Avenue. Again, that will be continued until June 18th. Okay, we have a new one, Bob, with IDA. Okay, we have a new hearing. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that Donald Richard Brown, 4 Jamie Lane, Shrewsbury, has filed a request for determination of applicability for the construction of a shed at 4 Jamie Lane. A public meeting will be held on the above request at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening, May 14th, in the old Selectmen's Meeting Room. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm the homeowner. I'm Donald Richard Brown.
Okay.
I didn't bring any visuals, I apologize. So my wife and I have been looking to potentially install a shed on the northeast corner of our property. The shed would meet all of the requirements for setbacks from the property lines, and the shed would be under 200 square feet, so I understand I don't need a permit for that. But the shed would be, the site that we would like to place the shed is sloped, and it would require pouring concrete for 9 sonotubes. So we would displace some soil. And the shed is within 100 feet, I think it would be about 40 feet from flagged wetlands on my neighbor's property. My neighbor on North Street has some flagged wetlands, and I know that the Conservation Department's been out there recently because I think he cut some trees down and might have disturbed the land there. And in order not to make the same mistakes that he made, I want to make sure that whether, if I'm within the
Can you show us
Yeah,
if the
can you come-
property is yours?
Yeah, why don't you come right up
You
here?
have a kind of a plot plan of the subdivision.
Yep. It's 4 Jamie Lane. It's this large corner property right here.
Right.
This is my house.
Yep,
This is the approximate location of the shed, which is going to be about 12 feet from the property line
Yep.
in this direction, probably more like 25 feet from the property line in this direction. This is the flagged wetlands of my neighbor's home on North Street.
okay.
And of course, this drains through, we have a retention pond here as well, but we're not going to go anywhere near that. So this is the proposed location.
Okay. So it's gonna be on sonotubes, you said,
It
and
has to be on sonotubes. The site is just too sloped for any other sort of foundation.
no disturbance of the topography, just,
No disturbance, other than, I mean, the sonotubes would have to be dug
Yes,
below the
right.
frost line, of course, and then it's just gonna be wood chips around the shed. But we can put vegetation there if that's something that matters.
Jason,
I'm all set.
I'm all set.
Bob?
Can you just move it so it's 30 feet away from the closest flag? Instead of
Absolutely,
25?
yeah, I think it'll be closer to 40 feet probably from
Okay.
the flagged wetlands. But the town conservation guidelines said something about 100 feet from flagged wetlands, so that's why we filed this.
That's what's in our jurisdiction,
Right.
100 feet, but
Okay.
the shed you're saying is 40 feet from.
It'll be at least 30, probably closer to 40.
Nice.
Okay. Andy, anything?
No, we talked earlier, and we figured this was the best way to do it.
Does anyone in the public have any questions or comments? Okay, there being none, you want to
Mr.
make?
Chairman, I move that we issue a negative determination with regards to this petition.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
You're all set,
We're all set.
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you, Ken. Oops, wait a minute, Ken. Sorry, my bad.
Okay, we have another new hearing. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of general laws, chapter 131, section 40, that Rui Alfonso, 50 Old Faith Road, Shrewsbury, has filed a request for determination of applicability to replace an existing porch with a new one at 50 Old Faith Road. Public meeting will be held on the above request at 7 PM on Tuesday evening, May 14th, in the old Selectmen's Meeting Room. Anyone here?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
I am Rui Afonso.
Yeah.
As you might have seen from the application, this is a project that's about 12 years old. I came before your committee 12 years ago with a much more ambitious replacement of this three-season porch for a number of reasons. 11 years of college tuition payments. That did not happen. We're doing it now, less ambitious, basically replacing what we have with the same exact footprint. Actually, it's about a foot smaller than what it is now. When I met with Mr. Truman, he indicated that if we were using the existing sonotubes that the existing porch is in, I would not have to come before you. The drawings are not completed, and so there's a chance that they have these new things called, I don't even know what they're called, where instead of being a cement thing, it's a pile that they screw in there.
Yeah.
And because of the slightly different dimension, they may choose to put that in next to the ones that are there now. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's, as you can see,
There are some pictures here.
I had some sketches. I'm
yeah.
ashamed to say that I'm an engineer and I only gave you those sketches, but
Along with engineers.
So it's gonna be the same size, but the only thing is you're not sure where the sonotubes are gonna be.
either the existing ones remain,
Yeah. Or you may have to add
or
one.
they will
Yeah.
be literally next to them,
Yeah.
maybe 1 foot inside, because this new sunroom, I think that's what it's called, it's going to be about 12 inches
Yeah.
shorter in that
Correct.
dimension than the existing one.
It's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, any comments, Jason?
None.
I'm all set.
Bob, Ken, Andy?
No, I say all said, the only thing be filed, just.
Yep. Anyone in the public have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we issue a negative determination with respect to this petition.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Negative means good, right?
Negative
In this
is good.
case.
Counterintuitive, yes.
In this case, good.
I'm all set then?
You're all set.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Have a good
Thank
night.
Okay, we have a new hearing. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that Peter Phillips, 23 Forest Avenue, Shrewsbury, have filed a notice of intent for the removal of a maple tree at the rear of property at 23 Forest Avenue. A public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 PM on Tuesday evening, May 14th, in the Old Selectmen's Meeting Room.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Name's Peter Phillips. On the order of 23 Forest. I do have a current DEP file number and order of conditions for reconstruction of the house. I seek permission to remove a 36-inch maple. The order of conditions is a hay bale and silt fence about 15 feet from the water line. This is on the opposite side or lake side of that. There's an old wall there, so I think I can remove this with very little erosion, so I seek permission to remove.
Okay. Just to clear up the file number, you don't have a file number for tonight's hearing, though, do you?
No, I have an existing one on the property. This is just seeking permission to remove the tree, right? Because I should have done that in the original filing, but realized after working on this
So is
property
this
that
an
the tree's gotta go as a
I
safety
guess this
issue.
would be, I guess I didn't realize, Mr. Chairman, this was
Yeah.
an original one, so this would be an amendment, I guess.
Does
Well, would
it
it be
say
an
in the
amendment?
file? Does it say in the file? It should say.
He's made a fresh filing, right?
Well, that's what Brad said to do, so
Yeah.
Oh, that's-
I'll take your recommendation.
Unless the other order expired, is all. Did you close out the other order conditions?
No, we're just in
Still
construction
active?
now, right? So this is, I guess you could call it an
Yeah,
amendment.
An amendment, I guess, an amendment. to the order
Did
conditions.
you pay all fees again and everything?
Yeah, oh yeah, yes, on the existing one, correct, yeah, it's been filed.
Not on the existing one, on this one in front of us
Yes, I did.
tonight. Did you, again, you went through a whole set, because I'm,
Yeah, well, that's what Brad recommended, he didn't say anything about an amendment when I met with him.
yeah,
Okay,
because if it's,
Well, whatever is
We
the
can only
easiest.
have one order on the property.
well,
you can only have one order on a property?
I'm supposed to want active order conditions on the property at a time.
I could clarify that actually, if you like.
If, well, you probably do more better than I do.
Please.
go ahead.
Art Allen from Ecotech. You can have multiple orders as long as they're not for the same work.
Oh, okay.
But I would, in this case, if he has a valid order, I'd recommend he withdraw this notice and you find, you grant him an amendment if you're willing to do that
Whatever's easy.
to the existing order.
Can we grant him an amendment without another filing of some sort? Or based on this filing, can we grant him?
We still need to
Doubt it.
file it,
It's-
but
it's
we
in the system right
You
now.
can use that as a, yeah, he can withdraw. I mean, even if the file number becomes issued, he can still withdraw the.
But what would be the value of that?
Uh,
Now that he's gone through this, I can see if he never went through it. But having gone through it,
good luck getting money back from DEP.
well, yeah,
Well, if he doesn't have a file number, he'd obviously have to wait a month.
I have a file number for the.
No,
He has a
no,
current
no,
one,
no,
not
Oh,
this one.
okay.
That would be the only thing, he'd be delayed a month.
I mean, at this stage in the game, Art, probably just let him get his file number
yeah.
and write it,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, it does, either way. It's just
Even,
a-
even
just
though
a-
it might have been simpler to file an amendment at the time,
Yeah.
now that you've gone through this, the simplest course is probably just to let this take its course.
Which means, what, filing with E DEP?
No,
No,
you've
you already done that.
You already did it,
Okay.
so now you gotta wait until they issue a file number.
Well, this only went to Conservation Commission,
Ah,
it did
so
not
he-
go to DEP.
Oh, all right,
All right, so he
Okay.
didn't do a.
I filed it with, Brad said file the WPA with him
Yeah.
and present the board.
yeah.
So that's what he told me to do, so that's what I did.
Not a complete filing, there will be no file number issued.
Oh, all right,
Okay.
okay.
Never went to DEP.
So this really
It's only
can be,
before
I
you.
looked on down the file.
this can be a hearing for an amendment.
For an amendment.
We can act on that.
On the
yeah.
basis of this
Yeah, I think that's
information.
reasonable, yeah. And
This is what
we should do.
Without him doing any other
Right.
paperwork than that.
Right,
Treat it as amendment tonight, and that
Right.
should be okay.
Yeah, the only thing is I don't have the right form to sign, but I can probably run out
All right.
in the interim.
okay.
So,
All right.
we're gonna go under your old number,
And do an amendment,
and we'll do an amendment,
okay.
All right.
and if we see the picture of the tree, and let me just pass it down.
No,
So what do you intend to do to just, I know there's a wall there, but as you take it down, are you leaving the stump there?
I was planning on leaving the stump.
why are you taking the tree down?
If you look at that, I mean, I live next door, I've had several trees fail. If you look at that,
the one half of it, the house side of it, it's probably about 70 feet high, leaning over the house. Don't wanna go through the process of building this and have that tree split and land on the house. If that happens, the other side's gonna land in the lake, in my opinion. I've had a couple tree guys look at it, they feel the same way.
There's not much holding those up.
Yeah, okay.
You think you can plant anything in its place, you know, adjacent to it, just some shrub?
Shrubs, probably. Yeah, low shrubs.
Nothing that's gonna present a long-term
Sure.
problem, but if you do a little bit of, just a couple shrubs in there,
Yep, we could do that.
get some greenery.
I mean, there's grass around it right now, so it's,
Yeah, I know, it's all just a whole bare slope though, you know, right?
it's not a bit, on the other side of the silt fence is grass. It's
Yeah,
undisturbed
grass, but I mean, no shrubs.
No, there's nothing. This is basically the only tree on the property.
Yeah. So what would
You
you,
want a motion?
yeah, you wanna
You
make
want
a
to see
motion?
if there's any comments?
Yeah, does anyone in the public have any questions or comments on this tree removal? Okay, we don't
Mr.
see
Chairman,
any,
I
so
would-
how do we wanna?
I would move that we amend the existing order of conditions on 23 Forest Ave to include the removal of the trees as has been, the tree that has been discussed tonight, with an additional condition that a minimum of 2 shrubs be planted
Fine.
in its stead.
Something like holly plants, you know, that don't go
Yep.
tremendously high, you get a
Yep,
male,
something you
female,
can-
you get berries, you get birds coming
Yep,
into
that's
them.
fine.
Just so
Okay.
I write it correctly.
And what are the recommendations on stump? Can I go right down and?
Just
should I-
the grade.
Oh,
Yeah.
the grade,
Don't,
okay.
don't,
As long as you don't try to remove it.
Nope, just gonna leave it there.
yeah.
Can you grind it if
Yeah,
you want to
if
grind
you
it?
wanna grind it, then
Wanna
you
grind
can
Can, if
grind
I
it.
want to?
Yeah.
All right,
Do you
that's
want
fine.
to- Okay.
Just keep the
Include
chips
grinding?
Yeah.
out.
Yep.
Yeah,
we'll do
that's
that.
fine. All right, so we had a motion, do we have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was an amendment.
I'm sorry, last public hearing. Going very well, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, what time is it now?
Just close it.
7:44. Okay. All right, we have a new hearing. Notice is hereby given in accordance with provisions of general laws, chapter 131, section 40, that James Mastro Giovanni, 601 Grafton Street, Shrewsbury, has filed a notice of intent for the demolition of 2 additions and construction of 3 additions to an existing single-family home at 601 Grafton Street. Public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 PM on Tuesday evening, May 14th, in the old Selectmen's Meeting Room. Good evening.
Arthur Allen from Ecotech, representing the Master Giovanni? Yeah, close enough.
Yes. And I am Wendy, Master
Giovanni,
Giovanni.
the co-owner, is here with me tonight. I have certificates of mailing from the butters.
Thank you.
And did you see the DEP file number that was issued late this afternoon?
Oh, look, so I printed mine out at 3
I
o'clock.
was
Did they print it
counting
out
them
for
at
us?
4
Oh,
o'clock.
good.
and-
What's the last 4 digits on that?
1828.
1828.
Oh, good, so I can issue that. So
We did get a DEP file number late this afternoon with no
yeah,
comments.
we were trying to get a few of them.
And the project consists of remodeling an existing single-family house at 601. The Big Bummit Brook actually runs through the eastern portion of the site here. That projects the 100 and 200-foot riverfront areas. The existing house is within 100 and 200 feet of Big Bummit Brook. We also have a flood zone, AE at elevation 415.5, that runs close to the east side of the house and runs through one of the existing additions and under one of the proposed porch. We have a bordering vegetated wetland in this corner of the site, flagged with the A series, and that's up in the north end of the site. And that's about 30 feet from the existing house right now. There's actually it looks like probably historically when this house was built, this wetland there's actually concrete drop inlet in the middle of this. It's a wooded swamp, It looks relatively undisturbed. I stood at the edge of it and I could hear water running. I thought initially it was isolated, but I walked into the middle of it. There's a concrete drop inlet, water was flowing into it. I sighted the pipe and it outlets on the bank of a big Plymouth Brook that was under the lawn. So I think historically when they developed the lot, they partially filled it and culverted,
Yeah.
drained that wetland. But it's a decent, you know, natural wooded swamp at this point. It's just actually BVW because of that culvert connection. And then there's a narrow BVW down along Plymouth Brook. So the buffer zone ends up, you know, this is just this corner of the south, west corner of the site is the only part that's out of the 100-foot buffer. So once, what they're proposing is to tear down two dilapidated additions. One of them's quite large off the south end of the house, and then replace with the other additions close into the house. There actually will be a reduction in impervious area on the lot of 470 square feet. All the work is within existing lawn. And reduced impervious of 470 square feet once they do the demolition and then the new construction. There'll actually be also a reduction in or increase in the flood storage volume of about 5.5 cubic feet calculated. So again, once they take the big addition out and restore that to grade, there are no grading changes proposed, no fill proposed. But once they remove the larger addition and build the smaller additions, they'll end up with 5.5 cubic feet of increased flood storage. Again, although the work is all within the outer riparian or 100 to 200 feet off Big Plymouth Brook, it's within lawn area. It's allowed as accessory to a single-family house in lawn, as long as you're more than 50 feet away from the river itself, within riverfront. The closest part of the work structure is 34 feet from wetland flag A6 up on the north end, so all the work is more than 30 feet away. Proposing erosion control barriers. There'll just be frost walls, no full foundation, frost walls, a crawl space, excess soil will be temporarily stockpiled within the erosion control barriers removed from the site. Again, all grades will be restored, the lawn will be returned with loam and seed at the end of the project and stabilized. So that's about it. I'd be glad to enter any discussion you'd like to have on this.
Jason?
Nothing at this time.
Bob?
Okay.
Yeah. Andy?
Not good, it's all set, no, I mean.
Anyone in the public have any questions or comments? There being none, close the hearing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes care of our hearings for the night. We'll move on to our new and old business and discuss and sign orders of conditions. You want, here, the Grafton Street people. Tell you what, we're gonna move down the agenda here. We have some people here for an enforcement order. And 784 Grafton Street. So, Andy, why don't you give us an update since the last?
Yes, so as a commissioner member that was waiting for the winter to pass the flag, so I did go out after the meeting last meeting. So they had flagged it, and the existing shed is not in the wetland, but it's probably within 5 or 10 feet. There's also a lot of debris, construction debris, burn piles in the wetland. The owner was currently draining his pool also into the wetland when I was out there. So a number of violations. He was out there. I did update him on why the flags were there. And we would expect him to take the house down, but obviously he didn't turn up tonight, so I don't know at this point. So the commissioners want to go out and take a look and say the flags are in.
Okay.
There's certainly a number of violations that
Okay, and
need to be resolved.
what we can discuss tonight, obviously the shed we know now is not in the wetland, but 5 to 10 feet within the wetland line. So how do we want to handle that? It's only a foundation at this point, correct?
It's got a couple of walls
A
up.
couple walls up. Move it?
You should move it 30 feet away.
Well, I mean, what, our existing order is that he file a,
Well, right now it's just an enforcement order on there, that, yeah,
as part of the enforcement order.
Who's to
that-
cease construction?
it's a cease and desist on the existing shed, that was it, we haven't given him any other direction other than that. So,
Didn't we require him to file a notice of intent
I
as part of
think
that?
Well, we had to do a wetland flagging, I think that
Yeah,
was
the
part of
flagging's
the
done,
order.
so now at this
So
point,
now
yeah.
we know what
All right,
is,
so we should make him, I can instruct him to file a notice of intent for the, after the fact, and then,
Well, at a minimum, you should probably send them a letter saying, have a plan
Yeah.
showing the new location of the shed, approximately 30 feet away from the nearest
Yeah.
wetland
Yeah.
flags, and show the debris that's going to be picked up
Yeah.
and removed and disposed of.
Yeah,
And I don't know what else he's got there that needs to be.
I'd say there's debris, burn piles, I mean, so there was a hole.
so any fill or construction debris should be
Yeah, there's a
noted
lot.
on the plan and also noted
Yeah,
to be
trash,
removed.
general trash, blown in trash and dump trash,
Yeah.
say
So
the
the
pool,
areas-
it looked like he was
the
washing, back
wetland
washing
should be
the pool was going
restored
into
to
that.
its,
Any restoration.
So I would at least
to its
want to,
natural,
and put in some
condition.
kind of physical,
Restoration.
yeah, some physical barrier to, so, okay.
So the next step is a letter getting more detailed as to what he has to do, now that we know what the wetland flag line is
Okay.
and where the violations exist. He now has to document them on the plan and also file for the shed where he's going to locate it.
You don't have any plan from Ecotech at all? Did they put any plan in at all when they did?
No,
the
they've
flag?
just delineated the flag, so we'll probably have to get a copy.
Yeah,
He'll have to get-
that would be part of this
That'd be
letter
part of his
saying.
NOI, he'll have to get a copy of their wetlands report and their flagging, and then have a surveyor.
One thing I had a question on is the flagging, I think I spoke to you a little bit on it, is that I think the flagging, even though it looks like it's 5 feet, 10 feet, 30 feet out of the wetland, I think that's fill that's been used, and the shed, right where the shed is, remember I said there's always been like water there? It's always.
I'm sure, I mean, the whole area is all filled wetland, I'm sure if we.
And that was filled by him. So what I talked to a wetland consultant, and he said, and I had him come out, and he looked, and he said, yeah, it looks like it's filled. And he said, it looks like it's been filled, and the flagging that Ecotech did, they need to defend it by doing deeper boreholes to show that it's not the fill that we're looking at that's saying, yes, it's out of the wetlands, it's 30 feet away. But in actuality, that's fill, that was wetlands. And that if that's the case, the shed needs to come out and the fill needs to come out and he needs to restore it. Because that is sitting in the wetlands, but he has put fill in there. The other thing.
But I guess the question is, I don't know, did he put the fill in or was it?
No, he did.
How long ago are you
I don't have
talking
any
about?
records. I looked
He's
at the
only had the
areas.
property 1 year.
Yeah,
So what he did is, if you notice when you're out there, he has all this patio. Like if you look, I have some pictures when it was for sale, and I have pictures since he bought it. When it was for sale, there was none of that patio that he has. There's a giant bricks and pavers and all this stuff. What he did is he removed a lot of the fill to put the bricks and pavers in and dumped it right there in the wetlands. I talked to Brad about that, and he said, yeah, I can see that there's been fill put back there. So when he did that, I know he was trying to dry it up, then he was burning fires back there, and then he was dumping all kinds of stuff in there because he does construction work from other locations. So that's when I went in, they put the cease and desist order in, and then he started building a shed, because you can build a shed because you don't need a building permit. When I talked to the building permit lady, she's like, if it's in the wetlands, you gotta go here, I came here. And since he stopped, I mean, he put the foundation in, he had all that fill in there, and then he put all the walls up, and then he had to stop, because then Brad went down, he's like, you can't do this, you're right here. So then he told him to get flagging, and in March he told him by April 26th, I wanna see a notice of intent. That never happened, and that was what Brad had asked for. He never came to the meeting, never any notice of intent. Then I just recently had a wetlands representative go out there, and he said, what the Ecotech needs to do is defend its flagging, because it looks like he is within wetlands that has now been filled recently. So what they do is they dig deeper test pits, and it shows the different
Oh, yeah, you could do, yeah, you
Levels
could,
of
you
it.
could look for the morphic soils, but the history,
Right.
then becomes an argument of
Well,
proving when
yeah.
when the fill was put there, because you could do that on all those lots around there, and I could guarantee you'd find all of it's wetland, but then it becomes an issue
Well,
of
the
proving.
point is, I think, is that if he
Yeah.
if we require that he file a notice of intent, that notice of intent will have to include the plan of the flagging, which we'll have to.
He'll have the
yeah,
report,
we'll
he'll have the data sheets with it, so.
Yeah. So, I think we
Yeah,
should
like
check.
I have pictures where the shed is actually soaking wet on the sides, on those walls, that he put up. Even though he stuck in all these bricks, no, they're actually concrete blocks, way up high to pull it out of the wetlands. So obviously, I think to do, because you have to walk up into the shed, it's not a shed like
Yeah, it's up
ground
off the
level.
ground.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But, yeah,
I mean, it's
right.
up out of it, but you can see when it gets really wet, it's on the walls, on the outside of the walls, so
It
it's
seems
still
to me
within
we
it.
should look at you should look at the order, see if it in fact requires a notice of intent be filed.
Oh, it's definitely, there's a number of things I've
Yeah.
done anyway.
Well, so, but
And
I guess,
rather than
did
write him
you,
a letter, I think we should
you
perhaps.
only issued them a cease and desist so far, right? There's been no
That's been
enforcement
it.
order?
Correct, there's an enforcement order,
There
yeah,
is
we,
an enforcement.
Yeah,
yeah.
there's an enforcement order, so if it's complete, that's fine, if it's not, let's amend it and add these other things. And I think an enforcement order is more appropriate than a letter, however.
I can certainly update it, and,
Yeah.
I mean, I did walk the site with him, he was kind of aware of what was going on,
Yeah.
even though he was playing
Let's see
naivety.
if we can get him
So ultimately, there's going to be a filing being
Hopefully.
made for this shed if he opts to go ahead with it. And also, he's going to be ordered to remove the debris from the wetland and any fill that he's put in the wetland. But you'll have your chance again, this isn't
Okay.
ending, it'll go to a more
Just
formal
'cause
filing.
in the long run, and I remember being at one of these meetings and someone else had said this, there's a stream that runs from that apple orchard, which is now a 55+ or elderly housing, whatever, that goes right through into the backs of the properties. By filling in your property, you're drowning me. It's making my property wetter and wetter, so it needs to run through the area, his area, my area, and keep going through where the next neighbor down, before all the wetlands and all the acts and all that happened, has put pipes in to keep it flowing past his, it goes right under his property out, under 140 and into Window Pond. So, I mean, that's another huge part of this. I don't wanna be drowned in, besides looking at unbelievable eyesore, which is just crazy.
Unfortunate it takes so long to do this,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
unfortunate, but, we have to keep coming back and be
Right, oh, I
persistent, and
know.
we'll, now that we have it flagged, and
Right.
we're going to send another revising enforcement order, and he needs to attend to it.
Yeah.
It's
No, I
unfortunate
thank you
it
for
takes
your
so
help.
long.
Yeah, I know, 'cause it's winter. and
So I
all.
guess if I'm gonna tell him to file a notice of intent, do we want it in by the June? We'll have to file at the end of this month, so I'll
Yeah.
just give him a deadline, that way it's not just.
Yeah, so it's not hanging out there.
So I'll tell him he has to, for the June 18th meeting.
And then
Okay.
one more quick question, when you send out the enforcement order, do you also copy DEP on it, or just goes?
Does DEP get a copy? I'm wondering.
I don't think so, because technically it's the Concom that's regulating
It's a
the
local-
protection
it's
act,
a
it's
local
local. We are the,
If sometimes we have trouble getting compliance with it, our next step is we
Yeah, we can
refer it to
escalate it.
DEP.
Right, okay, well, I appreciate all the help. I just
Okay.
trying to, I'm glad you went out there to see.
yes, it was,
Oh,
All right,
all right, thank you.
sounds good. And Andy, just while we're on enforcement,
enforcement.
12 Commerce, we haven't heard anything.
Nothing on 198, I did talk to the owner, the applicant.
Yep.
He told me he was gonna come tonight and give the commission an update, but it was still the same story, that doesn't understand the point of going in there to do the restoration work until he's ready to do the rest of the work.
All right,
I was hoping he would come tonight and give me an update.
we want to do something there then.
The thing with that one is, he cut all, he cut everything down.
Everything.
So now, with all the rain and whatnot, I mean,
It's gotta be loose.
I saw some hay bales, but they've since been taken away, and there is nothing on the bottom of the slope to prevent anything from washing into the lake.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to go out and take a look.
Can you do that, Andy, you think, in the?
Yeah, I can go and take a look the next time, yeah.
Does the Lake Commission have any enforcement authority at all?
Not on that.
Not on
The
the
lake
north.
commission only regulates on the water,
So actual docks.
on the water. Well, and locations of docks, size of
So
docks.
erosion and.
So yeah, I'll take a visit and just give you an update.
Okay.
Let's see.
All right, so going back to our orders of conditions, are we all set, Bob?
They should be circulating now, it's filling the matters.
Did we have
We have negatives that we've all,
Yeah, they should,
RDAs.
yeah,
So-
the signatures are here.
yeah, they should all be there.
Did we do a motion for the,
Not that one.
Master, for 601 Grafton Street?
Yeah, you
don't think
closed,
so.
well, you
Yeah,
didn't,
we
you
closed
closed
the
the public hearing, you didn't
Yeah,
have to.
Yeah.
okay, well, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we issue an order of conditions for the proposed work, removal of two additions and addition of 3 additions to a single-family home at 601 Grafton Street.
Second.
any discussion on that one? No, I think that was clean.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is it in there to be signed?
Okay,
No, I've got more, plenty more down, but I just filled it out.
these are the signatures for those.
Just flip through those, Bob, see if there was one
Did I
for
not put it?
601 Grafton.
Yes, there is.
There is one in there?
Yeah.
All right,
We got that one.
that's all right.
Oh, wait a
Won't
minute.
be the first one.
No, there isn't.
Oh, see?
No, there isn't.
it right here.
I did the 3 RDAs but now we need something for
Oh,
forest.
it's recording. Oh, so I wrote the DEP number on it.
You must have wrote on one of those that we have.
Or this,
Let's show the conditions right there.
yeah, no, this thing here, cross out 23 forest and put,
Oh, I put forest, that's right, sorry.
put 60 Grafton. And then we need an amended order for forest.
That's why I was, that's right. Do-do-do, 6 on Grafton. Nick, Grafton, I'm gonna have to go and get, forestry, I'm gonna have to go and get a form.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And the certificate of compliance, Andy?
Sticking on compliance, yes, so it's an old one from Adams Farm, we got a call from an attorney, one of the units was trying to close on the units, and there was an order of conditions that was recorded that expired, because this is back in 2005. They never actually came and closed it out, so she's just filed a certificate to basically say it's expired, so
Okay.
we're gonna issue the order of condition, the certificate of compliance. Basically, certificate says
We need-
expired, so.
we need that.
Yep.
Okay. I think we're just waiting for that form.
Here we go. Do we have, what happened to the amendment on 4?
Yeah, he's going.
I gotta go and print it, because I didn't know it was an amendment, so I didn't print it out,
Oh, okay.
so.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that we have got to meet on is that bylaw again, just to bring that further along to see how we're gonna proceed.
Well,
If, you know,
I'm fine.
I thought we had decided that we're just gonna
well,
have something that,
I'm good with with what we have for our regs, and I know that it needs to probably be memorialized in a different way. The
Yeah.
concern that I had with what was presented were the additional fees.
yeah, well, that was a component of it, which we don't have to put in it.
I would, my issue with the additional fees is that when homeowners or developers come in, they were already paying fees to the planning board
I know.
for certain, for plan review
Yeah.
and for permits and for a lot of other things. And then, once they do go, that's just for the permitting phase. Once they get the permits, there's a whole nother set of fees they have to pay for inspections and
Yeah.
bonds.
Yeah.
along with a building permit, sewer service fees, water fees. So I'm just saying, you know, I think that some of this stuff is getting
Well, that's just a
covered on
component, yeah, I know what you're saying,
other
Ken.
boards. And I
Yeah.
don't think that we need to add more to it.
No,
Let me-
maybe we don't.
Let me ask you this, comparatively, where do we stand with fees compared to, let's say, Northborough, Grafton, Boylston?
No idea. I'm just saying, my issue was why add more fees? Why put more, and there aren't a lot of big projects in town anymore, a lot of the
There's nowhere to
smaller
build.
ones. So it all comes down to basically homeowners
Yeah,
that
a lot
are
of it is.
paying the brunt of it. So
Yeah.
that was my thought.
Yeah, and I'm more concerned on the enforcement of the offsets and things like that. We
Right.
have guidance.
Absolutely.
And I know, it's a tough job to get compliance at times.
I don't, see, I think that works fine.
It-
And on 2 occasions that it's been challenged,
Yeah.
it's been upheld.
Let's see,
So that's 100% success.
I don't know if we've had 100%. I think we've
Well-
had cases where DEP has not stood with us on.
I don't know, it's
Yeah.
only been challenged
I mean, it
twice.
hasn't been challenged many times. I
Twice,
know, yeah,
to my knowledge.
yeah.
well, we have one that came in tonight, for instance, the
Yeah.
duplex. I mean, if it was a single-family home, perhaps it would not be encroaching on the 30-foot
Right.
buffer.
Yeah.
So, that's one, if they built a single-family home, fine, they
I
probably could fit it.
agree,
Now,
the problem goes away.
But that's one where if we had something memorialized, then,
And we have no enforcement clout beyond our letter. We have no ability to fine.
Well, I mean, I think, a couple of things that I think are really important, and that's some kind of bonding through the planning board, because they already have a bond process in place, to guarantee compliance from major developments, and subdivisions, so that people don't build their thing and walk away. And I would think we could work that through the planning board structure, and just by adding some number to whatever the bond is to cover the wetland portion of the obligation. I think that's crucial. And other things, if to the extent that we have requirements that exceed the minimum requirements of the state code, I want to make sure that we maintain our flexibility. I think the 30-foot rule is a very good rule, but I think sometimes 28 feet works.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do that.
I understand that.
But you can keep that flexibility in the bylaw too,
You
if you want to.
can, and I would,
Yeah.
You can retain discretion.
I'd be careful to try to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, sir.
So I know, I'm pretty sure Grafton has a bond requirement in their wetlands
Yeah,
bylaw.
yeah, others do.
Yeah, and the other thing I would suggest, just being on the other side of a lot of filings, is, if you're worried about tying people's hands, is that you have some sort of waiver provision that people can ask for a waiver if they have a hardship or something.
Grafton also has a pretty steep fee schedule too, I think, if I remember right. Years ago, I did a filing down there, and it was based on the dollars per linear foot of utility that went in within their jurisdiction. So if somebody was putting a sewer line in from a house, and it was within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, there was a fee based on every foot of that sewer and water line.
There we go.
That does it.
Okay,
That's
you're
all I
up.
have.
All right,
You're up, Ken.
would somebody,
Make a motion to adjourn.
we have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.